So you can never say that you're error-free when it comes to being a notary. A lot of times in your profile on these different platforms, I see a lot of people who will say, I am error-free. But like I said, the best notaries make mistakes. So this kind of game is helpful for new notaries and old notaries alike. So let's get right into name that error. Okay, so the first section is on loan documents, and I created a fake set of loan documents. They're going to be HELOC docs for Lauren Green and Jeffrey Walker. They signed their documents on May 6th, 2022. V. Anna Cherabel, me was the notary. Again, this is a fake set of documents, but this is just for the purpose of the game. So let's find their errors. And remember, raise your hand when you're ready to answer. Okay, so the first one is on a very important document, the Notice of Right to Cancel. Check out this form and tell me what the errors are, and then we'll go over them together. So raise your virtual hand once you've identified the errors. Nobody yet? Does everyone know how to raise their hand? Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. Okay, we got Jennifer. Okay, go ahead and unmute yourself.
So the document is dated May 4th, but the signer signed May 6th, and it wasn't corrected at the top.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the main error here. Thank you, Jennifer. So the right to cancel, and I swooped in with what I have. Right to cancels have the date that the signing should have taken place, or the opening of the account, as the form puts it. That date needs to match the date that the signing took place. So the signing took place on the 6th, right? The doc at the top says May 4th. So that would need to be corrected. So just like in our sample here, you just have to cross off that date, put the current day's signing, and then have the signer initial. There's one more error here. And it's a little bit more subtle, but let me know. Does anyone see it? Raise your hand. I'll give everyone a few more minutes to see this error. Let me know if anyone sees it, and feel free to raise your hand. Okay, Yolanda. All right, go ahead and unmute yourself. I'll ask you to unmute again. Okay, there you go.
Okay. Where Lauren Green crossed out the date, then they needed to initial.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you, Yolanda. That's it. It needs to be initialed. Date corrections need to be initialed, whether it's your correction or the signer's correction. So in the case here, so you see in my correct sample, I just had them sign a new right to cancel and fill in a new right to cancel. Why? Because you have several copies of the right to cancel in your set. You also have the signer's right to cancel, right? So you give them a copy of the docs, you have a copy of the docs. If they make an error on the right to cancel, I like to just have them fill in a brand new, fresh one. I want to make sure this form looks as perfect as we can get it. But if you don't do that, that's okay. Most of the time that won't present a problem. Always have the signer initial the correction. So in this case, I just had them sign a brand new form. So yeah, initial correction, date corrections, they have to be initial. That's something, just so you know, and I didn't mention it in the beginning, all of these errors, I asked our quality control team, which is the largest department that we have in the company. And I asked them what the common errors were. And this one, everybody agreed. This is a trend recently, is that we're not having signers initial date corrections. So there you go, right to cancel. Very good. Thank you, ladies. Okay, so this is on a form. Sometimes it's known as the lender's instructions. Sometimes it's known as the closing instruction. So examine this. It looks pretty plain, right? But examine it. Let me know what you think and go ahead and raise your hand once you know what the error is. It's a little bit tricky, I think. Okay, Stephen or Stefan, I will ask you to unmute.
Hey there.
Hey.
So I think it would be I see a blank line in there, I think. It's not filled out all the way.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
So that could be, that's not the error that I was looking for on this form. Check
Oh, it's
out
not stamped either. It's not stamped.
okay, no, you're right, it's not stamped. But look at the title of where Virginia Me signed. Look at the title there.
Mhm. Oh, that's not for you. That's for the settlement officer.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Yeah.
So exactly, that's the error, is that lately we're seeing notaries sign where the lender or the escrow agent signs. So if you have a question on what your title is, you're not going to sign where it says settlement agent, loan officer, or escrow agent, right? Those are not your titles. So when in doubt, remember those. You're not the settlement agent, you're not the escrow agent. Those are the same things. And you're not the loan officer. So your titles most likely are just going to be notary public or signing agent. So you don't need to sign there. Now, if you sign there, it's not the end of the world, right? Escrow's not going to have us go and have to re-sign the whole package because of that. It just means they'll have to reprint the form or cross your name out and sign it. So it's really just kind of a nuisance. It's not a big deal, but just so you know, one less place you have to sign, right? Okay, next up, the signature name affidavit. So let's check out this signature name affidavit and tell me what's wrong. There may be multiple things wrong on this. So go ahead, when you're ready, feel free to raise your hand and tell me what's the matter. Now, one of the errors is kind of tricky. You're not going to necessarily know it's an error, but you can maybe assume that it's an error. I realized that after I put this together. Okay, Jennifer. All right.
So the commission date on the bottom is the same as today's date, and that more than likely is not the case.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Yep. That's that little sneaky error. But what about there's another error though. So Stephen, I see your hands up. I don't know if it's up from last time, but I'm going to ask you to unmute. Tell me what that error is.
Would it be I mean, I don't say California after we sign our name, aren't we supposed to put notary public, common notary public?
Okay, so on acknowledgements, that's absolutely right. And we actually might have one coming up that looks like that. So on an acknowledgement, you print your name, right? Or you print your notary name, comma, notary public. On jurats, you don't print your name. However, a lot of notaries, after they sign, they put notary public, and that is totally acceptable. So
Okay.
yeah, you can absolutely do that. There's another one, and it's a big one, but it is missed all the time on this form. That's why I included this. So let's see. Claudia, I'm gonna unmute you. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello, yes, the property address, it doesn't have the full address.
Okay, that's true. That's true. But let's look at the notary section. So if you see the property address isn't completed, like in this case, it just has the city, state, and zip, the signer can add that. If it's on a signature name affidavit, it's not a note or a deed of trust, signer could absolutely add that. But let's look for the notary section. Okay, let's go for Vanessa. Let me ask you to unmute. There you go. Can you unmute, Vanessa?
There
you
it
go.
is. The notary stamp.
Yep, that's it. Good job. Perfect. Yeah, and that really, that we got the other ones, we got the harder ones, right? We got even, we mentioned the property address. So you got eagle eyes, but there's, for some reason on this form, and missing stamps kind of happen on all forms, right? But I'm telling you, the percentage of times that the notary misses this particular stamp on the notarization, it's kind of, it would blow you away if you knew how often this happens. So yeah, the stamp is missing. I don't know, there's something about this form, maybe just the proportions of the form, right? That the jurat is way at the bottom, you know, but the stamp. So missing notary stamps. Whenever you fill out an acknowledgement or a jurat, you must stamp the form, right? This form is useless without your stamp. So, yep, that's it. So those were our errors. So the stamp and the commission date. And kind of like what Jennifer brought out is that the date here signed May 6th, the commission expiration, the same thing. You can kind of assume that that's not so. Hey, every once in a while, you might be doing a signing on the day that your commission expires and you're, you know, using your last, you know, day of your commission. But how often is that? And this is actually a very, very common error that the commission, when you have to write in your commission, that you put in the date of the signing instead of your commission date. So these are all just kind of fine details, right? When you're on a signing, and maybe you've been doing it for a while, you get into a groove and you stop really slowing down and paying attention. And this isn't a judgment. I've been a notary for, oh gosh, 13 years, and it just is what happens, right? And every signing, I'd be like, I need to slow it down and pay attention, you know, because after I'd quality control my docs and I'd see little errors like this. So, and again, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, these errors happen with notaries that have been doing this forever, right? So when you're new, you want to get these good habits of triple checking your documents. And then when you've been doing it forever, you want to continue those habits. You can never really stop doing that, at least, and not make some errors along the way. All right, let's see what's next. All right, so this here is, I'm not giving you necessarily the names of these documents because that really doesn't matter. But we've got two signatures pages, right? And then a notarization. So let's see what do you think the errors are on this? Now, keeping in mind, you're a notary signing agent, right? So your job isn't just to notarize, but it's to verify signatures. It's to make sure dates look good. So let me know, what do you think? This is a little tricky. Okay, we've got Jared Brink. Jared Brink, by the way, is works with Coast to Coast. He does all sorts of things. Okay, there you go, Jared.
Their signatures are different.
There it is. Yeah, exactly. So that's one of them, and that's a big one, because that's going to get all of us in trouble. If the signers sign inconsistently, I don't know, 8 out of 10 times, it'll require a re-sign. So there's someone at the lender, the funding team, right? A funder, they might call them a funder, and their job is to make sure the docs look perfect. And they're going to say, hey, why did Lauren sign L Green and then she signed Lauren Green? And why did Jeffrey's looks different, right? Now, we are not the master of our signer's signature. We can't necessarily be like, hey, that's a little off. But if it's clearly off, like we're missing all of the rest of Lauren, right? And Jeff is clearly Jeff in this, and then in Jeffrey, there's like a squiggly that looks more like Jeffrey. We want to stop and say, hey, we need to make sure that everything signs exactly as the signature line dictates. So yeah, that one is, that one's tough, even if you've been doing it a long time, right? You might be having a good old time at the signing, and then all of a sudden you you realize, oh, shoot, they're signing a little different. So then you'd want to backtrack, you'd want to review the docs, anything where they're different, grab their copy, swap it out, and have them re-sign. Okay, there's one more error. So tell me what you think it is. Let's go for David.
In the notarial wording on the certificate, none of the pronouns are circled. And to me, the stamp also looks too blurry to pass.
Oh, totally. You got it. So the pronouns, that one's a tough one because the lenders mostly, the truth is, they don't care about the pronouns. But there will be a random lender that says, if those pronouns aren't right, we want new notarizations. So a good practice is to circle those pronouns. But the stamp is really the big error. And David used the right words, to pass. This particular form is the deed of trust. The deed of trust is a form that's recorded with the county. County recorders make sure that the forms look good, right? Now, every county recorder is different. And again, it's a person, just like there's a funder at the lender. People make mistakes, or maybe they make a judgment call, or maybe they pass something that they shouldn't. With county recorders, maybe one random county recorder will be like, oh, that's okay. But I would say 99% of them are not going to pass this stamp because it's blurry, right? So if you make a mistake on your stamp, you can cross off that mistake stamp like this one where I kind of double stamped, right? That's what it looks like. Cross it off and then place another clear stamp. Or if you just don't like the way that looks and you want to be extra safe, you want to include an all-purpose replacement notarization, right? So that's why in your notary bag, and if you're a new notary, you might not know this yet, but you print out all-purpose notarizations from your state, right? And if you're wondering, where do you get those? Type in, say you're in Michigan, all-purpose acknowledgement or all-purpose jurat. Print, I don't know, 20 of those, each of them, put them in your notary bag. That way, if this happens and you want it to look really nice, you just refill in this form, you put it right behind the signature page or the notarization. And just to kind of continue off of the first one that Jared brought to our attention, during the signing and when you QC the docs, you want to review the signatures to make sure they're consistent. So you don't have to be scrutinizing them with like a magnifying glass, right? You don't need to be, if it looks a little different than the other one, it's for big differences, right? And sometimes their signatures are like cursive or not cursive, like a symbol, right? In which case, let them do their symbol as long as it is a symbol throughout. Every once in a while, you'll get a borrower whose symbol is what maybe they primarily sign with. And then all of a sudden, their symbol becomes a signature with a cursive signature, right? So all of a sudden it's cursive. If that happens, you want to stop what you're doing and get you that borrower's copies out and start swapping documents because they're going to need it consistent. And this is an error that happens all the time. Okay. Real quick, I see that Hannah's our quality control manager and our office manager at Coast to Coast. Hannah, if you have anything to add, raise your hand and I will unmute you. Actually, I think I might be able to do that myself. Hold on. Let's check it out. How do I get to hear my participants? I'm just going to make you a host, Hannah, just in case you want to just chime in. There you go. Okay, next form. So this is a deed of trust. We've got several errors. Check it out. Raise your hand when you're ready. Sometimes when there's a lot of errors, we get overwhelmed, right? But these are, again, really sneaky errors. These are not particularly obvious, not on this one, right? But even the obvious ones aren't always obvious, like that stamp one, that missing stamp. So let me know. Okay, we've got a few people. Let's go for Joanne.
I see that the date is incorrect, the year.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yep. And again, that one is tricky because it looks good, right? It doesn't look sloppy, and maybe you're only checking for sloppiness. This error, by the way, has happened to me. Everything we signed, and it was like one of the best signings I've ever had in terms of like people, like socializing. Me and the borrower just like got on like peas and carrots. We had so much fun. And then I get home and I realized, oh my gosh, everything was dated like 2005 and it was like 2017. And yeah, so and there might be various reasons, right? Why? And this happens too when sometimes there's co-borrowers, they'll just like copy each other's dates. So you want to make sure. It could have been their anniversary, right? That has happened, I don't know, multiple times. Oh, it's their anniversary year, so they're just used to writing that year. So yeah, that's a big one. Okay, let's go for Teresita. All right, can you unmute yourself? I unmuted. I asked to unmute, but I'll ask again. Okay, I'll get back to you. Okay, so you should, Teresita, you should get a little pop-up that says unmute or stay muted. Okay, let's go for Kelly for now. And is this Kelly Davis? Kelly Davis has been with us from the beginning of these classes and videos. There she is.
Okay, I actually was going to say the date, and
Uh-huh.
now it's hard for me to see this because it's pretty small.
On your computer, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like something with the I'm not sure, the signers' names on the is that are they wrong?
Yeah. So one of them is wrong. Good job, Kelly. So one of them is wrong. So if you look here, let's look at the signature line and let's look at what the notary entered. So Lauren Green, okay, Lauren Green matches the signature line, right? And Jeff Walker, Jeffrey Walker. So this happens a lot where a notary might put what's only on the driver's license, and the driver's license might be different or have some differences than what the signature line has. Or maybe they go by Jeff and the whole time they've been saying Jeff, and so they just wrote Jeff down on their notarization. So on your notarization, when you enter their names, if it isn't pre-filled in, which sometimes it's pre-filled in, which is great, right? Because that's one less thing that you have to add. But if it's not pre-filled in, you have to match exactly what's on the signature line, right? So the signature line is Jeffrey. I should have put Jeffrey instead of Jeff. So that's a common error for one of our clients in particular, Bank of the West Equity. So they're equity HELOCs. If you do work for us, you might see these docs. This happens all the time. It's just a weird error that just happens. I don't know why, but it does. That's like kind of common. We get that weekly. Okay, I think that there's one more error. So let's go with Lois Ann. Okay, I'm going to ask you to unmute Lois Ann. That's a great name.
Hello.
Hey.
I think you forgot to put after your name, comma, Notary Public.
Yes. And there's actually another error too. I forgot. There's one more error. So yeah. So, and this was kind of alluded to before, right? We alluded to, I think it was Stephen who said it. You have to put, or David, but you had to put Notary Public, your title after you print your notary name. But there's one more error. And let's go for Elizabeth White. Elizabeth White is a coast-to-coast employee. She's my sister-in-law, and she also handles a lot of errors. She handles errors amongst many other things. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, Jenny. So the last error is that your printed name says Virginia Cherubel, but on your stamp, your actual notary name is V. Ann Cherubel. So it should match exactly how your notary name is. But I also wanted to mention one other thing that we see sometimes every now and then in errors is with regarding the borrower's names that are printed in the acknowledgement. Let's say if the borrowers both had the same last name, it would not be appropriate to put Lauren and Jeffrey Green instead of printing both of their full names. I just wanted to mention that one other thing because that happens every now and then too, that, oh, they have the same last name, so I can just kind of group them as two people with one last name, but you have to print it out, both of them.
Yes, that's a great, thank you, Elizabeth. That's a great, not suggestion, reminder. I was actually going to list that and then I realized the names were different. So I said, oh, I'll save that for the next one, but that's exactly right. So we'll think, or maybe the space is small. I'm thinking that's maybe why we do it, right? Maybe the space is small. So we decide, okay, we're going to just lump it together, Lauren and Jeffrey Walker, whatever. You can't do that, like Elizabeth said. Your solution to that, if the space is small, just like this is, the space is pretty small here, is you do get an all-purpose notarization, right? Or write really, really tiny, but clearly, but the best way, so it looks really good, is get a new all-purpose acknowledgement. And there you go. You can just have as much space as you need to fill in their names. So yeah, you can't do and without putting their last names for each name. So full names for each signer. Great suggestion, Elizabeth. Okay, so let me go back. And just to confirm, so we identified the error, but what's the correction on this for the date? I would say the best way to correct it is to do a clean, fresh one using the borrower's copies. As you can tell from this class already, that's my preference because I like it to look really clean, right? But if you have the signer put one line through the incorrect date, redate it correctly, and then they initial the correction like we talked about before, that works too. Some lenders will say they don't want any corrections at all. There's not too many of those lenders, but there's some of them. Provident is one of them, Provident Funding. They do not want any corrections. So it's always a good practice, I think, to just swap out the borrower's copies because you have the borrower's copies, right? And really, it makes no difference to them most of the time if in the deed of trust signature page for them is the one that they signed and then but incorrectly, or maybe they corrected it. So just use a fresh one. That's what I would suggest. Takes no time, right? Okay, so that's the end of the loan doc portion. The rest are word problems, notary signing agent word problems. And they're not the math word problems that we did back in school because I don't know how to do math, hardly at all. If there's only two numbers, I can maybe figure it out. But this is our notary version. And these are all real life examples. So I'll read them and you can read them along with me. And then we're going to talk about what you think that they missed. Now, at the end of this, I'll show you what I think they missed, but there might be more things. So there's really maybe no wrong answer. But let's go for the first scenario. So Joe Notary is at a loan signing and he wants to break his signing time record and get in and out in 30 minutes. Which is a normal thing. If you've been doing this job a long time, that is always your thought, right? How can I get in and out fast? And the signers are eager to sign quickly. Now, you're not going to tell them, hey, I want to get in and out of here super fast. But you'll get to the signing and you'll know if signers are like, hey, we've got an appointment after this, or they're like, honey, just sign. You know, okay, hey, maybe we can get in and out of there pretty quick. That shouldn't always be, you shouldn't be signing that way, but you know, that might happen. Okay, so Joe shows the signers where to sign. He enters their ID information in his journal, has them sign his journal, provide his thumbprints in the journal, and he's in and out in less than 30 minutes. So he showed them where to sign, filled in the journal portion, and he was out of there. What steps did he miss? What NSA steps did he miss? Okay, we've got Stephen raising his hand. So what do you think?
I'm thinking he didn't. I mean, would it matter? He didn't necessarily. I'm sure there were some jurors in there that he didn't ask him to or put him under oath for. Maybe.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And that's not one that I included, as you'll see, but that's absolutely right. And that is a wonderful notary thinking. So yeah, he just showed them where to sign and to leave. If he's at a loan signing, most likely there's going to be one or two jurats. They're going to require an oath or affirmation. So he didn't do his oath or affirmation, right? And if you're a notary in California and that the state gets wind of that, there's consequences. So that's a good one. You're going to see, I didn't include that in there. So I like that. That was good. That was very, that's all. We need to get our notary duties down, and that is one of them. Okay, so let's go for LCC notary. I think that's Kelly. We got Davis there. So let's see.
Yes, it's LaToya Campbell Davis. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us. I'm believing that the person forgot to correctly identify the signers based on their ID. He just took it and started writing information.
Yeah, that's another notary one that, according to this, we don't see that, right? He wants to get in and out of there fast, right? So he just puts the information down. And that probably happens all the time, to be honest with you. Notaries just get in the routine, they get their ID, they just grab the number, the expiration, issuance date, all that, and then they head out. So absolutely, that could be, that's another one I didn't add, but that is Notary 101. And according to this little paragraph, yeah, he missed that. Good one, very good. Okay, let's go for Jared.
He should probably take a minute or two to help them understand what they're signing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. So instead of just showing them where to sign, and that point goes to the fact that we're not just notaries, we're notary signing agents. The difference is that we can, in very basic terms, explain to the signer what they're signing. So we don't, and I've said it in other videos, if you're someone who's watched our videos, you can explain the what of the form. What form is it, right? It's the note. What is the note? Well, the note is your promise to pay back the loans. You're going to want to make sure the interest rate, the amount is correct. Anything in bold, make sure that's right. And then you're going to sign here on the second page or whatever, whatever the form is. So yeah, he should have absolutely at least said, hey, this is the note. Now, some signers are like, they will tell you, I do not want to know. I just want to know where to sign. Maybe they've done it a million times. Maybe they reviewed the documents ahead of time. Who knows? But I'd say before you just assume that, you go in and present the form. Okay, here's the deed of trust. Give a one sentence wrapping up what that form is, let them know that they can review it, and then where to sign and fill in the notarization. So that is within your realm to very briefly summarize what they're going to sign, right? You're not giving them advice. You're not overstepping. You're not saying, okay, so let's break down these fees here and where they come from and who they're going to and all that. That's not your job, but to let them know what they're signing. Totally. Okay, so there's a few more that I think, let's see, Stephen rose his hand again. Let's see, what do you think? What else did Joe miss?
Maybe he didn't show the signers his ID and introduce himself and prove that he's actually the signing agent, because I feel like it's a good thing to do, good practice. I mean,
yeah,
assume that they're going to believe who you are, who you say you are.
Yeah, I've had some signers even say, can I see your business card? Now, you don't necessarily need to show them your ID. Hey, you can. I mean, I would say that would make the signer very confident that you are who you say you are, right? But one thing that I always do is I have a business card and I put it on the borrower's copies of the docs, just so they know, right? They know, oh yeah, because they're going to forget your name most likely, unless you guys, again, just had a very memorable time and they're good with names. They're going to, later on, they might say, oh, Virginia. Yeah, Virginia was here and that's her ID. And again, just to kind of like Stephen is saying, build that confidence. Okay, so I'm going to show you, Elizabeth, let's go for it, Elizabeth. What do you think they missed?
Sorry, I don't want to steal all the comments, but I would guess that he saved his actually completing his notarizations for later, because he could just be like, well, their portion's taken care of. I can do that whenever before I ship documents.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big one that I included, and I will include my little portion here. So that's the first thing that I included, was the notarize the docs. Okay, let's be real here. There is no notary police, right? So the state doesn't send out someone to go on a signing with you and go, you're not filling in your notarizations at the time of the signing. There's not. So it's really up to you to make sure you do that. And there may be times in your career, if you are lucky enough to have a career for a long enough time, you're going to do that, right? You're going to be like, I'm going to save these for later because I'm going to another appointment. That is one against at least California law. I don't know about other states, but at least against California notary regulation. And it's just a bad practice too. So notarizing the documents in front of the signer, that's a notary 101 thing, right? That's when you take the notary class in California. Again, I don't know about every state, but they're pretty similar, right? They say you have to notarize the form in front of the signer, right? Or while you're doing the signing. So you don't want to get into that bad habit, because that habit is, against notary regulation. There are consequences to that. Not that there is a notary police, right? Again, that's, some notaries will be like, oh no, I can't do that. Well, you can't, and there is consequences, but no one is going to be checking in on that. It really is a good faith thing, right? You are going to do it because you told the state that you would do it, right? Just that way. So that's probably the biggest one. And then now we're talking notary signing agent stuff, triple checking the documents, signatures, dates, notarization, forms to be completed. I believe in a triple check. And I'll explain this if you haven't been on our classes or seen our videos before. So you're checking as they're signing. So this is how I do it. You have that forms in front of you. You hand them the form to sign. They give you the form back. You check it, right? That's the first check. Then once everything is signed, I say, give me just a few minutes, and so I can make sure you signed everything. I'm so fast that it is 1 or 2 minutes. It might take you 5 minutes, and it might be awkward, right? Especially when you're new, you're nervous and you're like, I don't want them looking at me while I'm doing this. Or maybe you'll think, man, they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. No, triple or doing that double check. And if you say it the right way, like, I'm just going to make sure that we did everything perfect so there's no problems later on down the line. It's going to make them feel like, hey, this person knows what they're doing. This is going to go perfectly smooth, right? And now, okay, whoops, you found something. You missed a signature. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be like, oh, shoot, now they're going to think I'm a real dork. No, no, no. Say, oh, looks like we missed something, right? Because they missed it too. We missed it. Give it back to them and say, oh, perfect. Now they're perfect, right? So that's 2 checks, right? While you're signing, at the end of the signing. And then the third is before you drop them off. That's my practice, is 3 checks, a triple check of the docs. And you're looking for the signatures. This is where you're going to catch if they sign inconsistently. Dates. This is where you're going to catch if they sign 2020 instead of 2023. Your notarizations. This might be the time that you notarize everything, right? Right before you leave. Add your stamps to the forms. And then go through if there's any forms that, oh, it looks like you needed to add this information, or this form needed to be completed. Let's do this at that time. And then complete the notary's journal entries. More is involved in your journal entries than just the ID information and a signature and thumbprint, right? Depending on your state on that thumbprint. You have to put what they signed. You have to put the time and the date of the signing. You actually have to put the fee of the signing, right? So complete your journal entries. That's also something that he missed. And all of that was in order to get in and out of there as quickly as possible. But I would say, and Hannah or Elizabeth or anybody who's a notary that has been doing it a long time, these steps may only take 10 additional minutes. So maybe he got out of there in 20 minutes. He would have gotten out of there in 30 minutes if he just did these steps. So it's really worth it, right? It's worth it. The quality control team will tell you how worth it is, right? Because clients get angry at errors. right? They don't want errors. I'd say clients get angry about anything errors. They want notaries out of their database because of the errors that they make. So just take your time. All right. Next one, NSA word problem. Whoa, check it out. Spelled word problem wrong. Embarrassing. That's okay. You guys are cool. You guys are my friends. Okay, so let's go over the scenario. Susie, signing agent, has a 2 p.m. seller's package signing that requires scan backs. She completes the signing at 2:45 p.m. Her signing took place right next to the local FedEx, so she puts the forms in an envelope and drops them in the box located right outside of the FedEx store. What do you think she missed? Okay, we've got, let's go for our Davis Notary, LCC Davis.
Yes, she forgot to get a receipt from a clerk.
Yeah, exactly. So she just used the box. And sometimes if you're in a really rural area, that might be all that there is there, a box. We advise against dropping docs in a box. We say you got to get yourself a label, or excuse me, a receipt for your drop off. So that means you have to actually go into the store, stand in line, get that receipt, take that receipt. The best practice, scan that receipt and upload it or send it to the client. That's super important. Just the other day, let me tell you a quick story before we get to the other things she missed. Just the other day, Notary, there's video footage of her giving the package to the clerk at FedEx, but never got a receipt. Docs never started tracking. A week later, we're like, well, hopefully they'll track. No tracking. There were scans, thank goodness, but because they could at least see that they signed. But anyways, the docs have never showed up. FedEx blamed her, even though there is footage that we've seen of her handing over a package. We don't know what package, though, to be clear, right? So she's saying it's this package. We're believing her, but that might not necessarily be true. Anyways, we had to re-sign the docs, and Coast to Coast has to purchase credit monitoring. So that's $200 that we have to purchase. We were going to make $50 on the file. So now we've lost money, and the signer's personal information is out there, and there's a delay in getting her money from the loan. So anywho, get a receipt. Okay, so let's go for David. What else did she miss?
It looks like she missed doing the scan backs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that happens too all the time. Maybe she forgot, or maybe she just thought, well, I'm going to get them out today, so I don't need to scan. So maybe she made a judgment call that she should not have made. And on SnapDocs, there is the scan back, it'll say required, and the client can even put when, right? So if this signing took place at 2, signing ended by 2:45, that gives her an hour and 15 minutes to scan back the package. She definitely had time, right? Even if okay, 2 things. Seller's packages are small. So even if she didn't want to drive all the way to her office to scan back the forms, could she do like a mobile scanner, like Tiny Scan, Genius Scan, Adobe, and then upload them to the site right from her smartphone? You can do that. I've done that. So yeah, absolutely. She forgot the scans. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention with sellers and buyers, and for refinances of non-primary residences, so investment properties, second homes, lenders can oftentimes fund without the originals. They can fund off of scans. So if you miss scans on a seller's or a buyer's, or like I said, a refinance that's not a primary residence, you could potentially delay the borrowers getting into homes, or the signers getting into homes, or funding of a loan. So there's a lot of times tight turnaround time. So if they say scan backs are required and they give you a time, you got to do it. And just communicate. What if this signing ended up taking till 4? Well, she couldn't meet that deadline, but just communicate with the person who hired you. Hey, signing's kind of going longer than I expected. I'll get these scans to you right away, and give them as clear of an ETA as you possibly can. I also included one more thing is that I don't see that she did that third check of those docs, right? So check the docs before placing in package. According to this, it looks like she just dropped the docs and went on her merry way. So that third check, that's what I do. And I think it helps me. That's what I've learned to do, just mind you. I spent the first half of my career as a notary making mistake after mistake, going way too fast, overbooking myself and not triple checking. It wasn't until I started working in the back end, and that's kind of why we do these classes, so you can get kind of a back end perspective. It wasn't until I started working with Coast to Coast as an employee instead of a notary that I realized how bad of a notary I was, right? I was totally just winging it, you know? I did not have a process. And that's why I've come up with this process for myself. And I share it with you because it wasn't until then that I started actually doing like good, clean work, right? And got very, very few errors. So, you know, what's the worst part though, is that I did not have a good process. I made many errors and I was defensive. I remember my mom, Lisa, the owner, would be like, Jenny, I need a notary acknowledgement, or Hannah, my mom's partner, would say the same thing. And I remember thinking like, no, I filled that out right. That can't be. And it was probably just because I was on the defense, because like deep down, I knew I was stinking it up as a notary, right? So it's not a judgment thing at all. So if you've made these mistakes, there's no judgment there, because I've done it and probably every single notary has done it. It's just something that you want to like keep in mind, is that like your errors and your cutting corners may have consequences, and don't cut corners until you've like done it a million years and you know exactly what's going to work and what's not going to work. Because I'd say nowadays too, clients will just straight up say, don't use this notary anymore. Don't use this notary. And that's happened to me. Right. And then you just, earn your way back and you just do good work. And how you do that, you have a good process. So see, remember how I said this was short and I could still talk for an hour straight? Yeah, there you go. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay, this is my favorite because this actually this actually happened recently and it was very, very, very sad. It was the day I was going to start my chemo treatment. The first chemo treatment ever. So I'm a little nervous, right? Because I don't know what to expect. And then I do some work in the morning and this happens. So, okay, here's the scenario. Joe Notary has a loan signing coming up. He prints the forms, takes them right out of the printer, clips them, puts them in his bag. When he gets to the signing, they notice some of the text has symbols in place of letters. He and the signers are frustrated and he assumes, Joe, that this is a title lender problem. This really must be their fault. They sent me docs like this, he exclaims. The signer, who is already hesitant, decides not to sign and cancels the loan. Joe informs the contracting company that docs were sent with issues and leaves the signing. So what went wrong here? What do you think? And this might be a little bit challenging to know, but let's see. Let's go with Joanne.
He didn't check his docs before he went to the signing to see if there were any errors.
Yes, exactly. That's the major one. And you can see in this image, like a sample. Now, it might not look exactly like this. You'd hope that he'd notice if it was just like this, but every once in a while, and this is a printer memory problem. Now, sometimes I have gotten once or twice this happened and the lender, it was on the lender, but I mean, very, very infrequently because it's a printer problem. But you'll get this printer memory issue where maybe your printer, you haven't turned off your printer in a while. And some of the wording is like hieroglyphics, right? And it is very strange, but you need to check them docs when you print them, right? I have done this so many times where I didn't check them. And then I'm on the way to the signing and I look and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to Kinko's, right? Reprinting docs, which you don't want to have to do. But yeah, that's, I'd say, the biggest error, but I think there's a few more too. Let's go for Kelly.
He should have called the signing company.
Yeah, that's it. He should have. Okay, so the first error he made, not looking at the docs, but when they discover this, he needs to call the person that hired him, right? And we can help unwind it. So this is what would happen. So he calls, maybe Hannah gets the call, and he says some of the text is like in smiley faces or hieroglyphics. It's like symbols. She would look at what was sent. So she would have done what he should have done, right? And she'll look at the PDF and say, no, they're not like this. This is a printer problem. Maybe then she could have talked to the borrower and explained the situation. And then even though they're already hesitant, they've got someone in authority going, okay, explaining the situation. They go, okay, that sounds good. All right, we'll just get them reprinted really quick, or maybe we can even have them printed by another signing agent and drop them off. There might be a variety of things we could do to fix it. So yeah, called the signing company right away. Okay, let's go for Jared. Let me ask you to unmute.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
No, I think that was me.
Yeah, he didn't he didn't support that lender title company by talking negatively. He just assured himself he'll never do work for them again.
Yes, that's beautifully put. That's exactly right. So, you might be nervous. You might be embarrassed. Maybe you kind of know, oh, shoot, I really did just take these dogs and fly out of there and I didn't check them at all. But your response should always be on the side of the person that's hiring you. So and that in this case, it's the signing company, it's the escrow and title. Maybe they didn't hire you directly, but those are your clients, right? So there should have been no fault and said, oh man, that doesn't look right. Let's call the signing company. And if the borrower's like, yeah, this darn lender, you should say, you know what, let's call them first. This could have been my error, right? Okay, let's see the notes that I included to see, because I think we pretty much covered them all. So did not review the docs after he printed them and compared them with what was sent. He could have caught this and it would have been a non-issue, right? Oh, shoot, I'm having this weird printer problem. Let me unplug my printer, plug it back in, solved. But that didn't happen. He didn't call the contracting company, say in this case, C2C, right away when the issue arose, right? That's the first thing he should have done. And then just like Jared brought out, which was a beautiful point, he blamed lender and title, assumed it was their error. He did not have their backs. Okay, and let me tell you what happened. So it's the morning of my first chemo. I see this reviewing signings that happened the previous day, right? And I see it didn't sign. And I'm always like, if something didn't sign and I see it, I'm always like, what happened? I'm always curious. And it just said docs had an issue. That's it. It had no other. We asked him, what issue was there? And then I think our client said there was no issue. Like all of this happened at like 8 a.m. my time. There was no issue with the docs. This was a notary error. So right away I called the notary. He said, oh, the docs were sent with this weird hieroglyphics. I explained that, no, that's you. Now he was afterwards like, oh, what can I do to help? But by this point, it was too late. I called the borrower. The borrower was super cool. The borrower just was like, I already had hesitations on this. I already had, reservations. And this kind of was just, the words he used was just the straw that like broke the camel's back, right? Okay, the lender was not happy, understandably. I spoke to the lender and the lender said, we understand the signer had hesitations, but we were confident that if everything went smooth at the signing, he would have signed and the loan would have closed. And they asked for us to reimburse them the cost of what they would have made for that signing, which was $2,000. So we were going to make $50 and now they're asking for $2,000 to come from coast to coast because of the notary error. So as you can imagine, I was very upset, right? Not at our client, because our client lost the money, right? They lost more than we lost, even though we lost money too. Errors happen. Accountability is the biggest thing. So even if they didn't compare the docs, they should have called us, right? That's the major thing. We could have helped. We could have helped save the signing. So you know, this is a real life scenario. It's an extreme one. This does not happen every week. Thank goodness, or else I would have, you know, I would have had a heart attack already. But yeah, so this is a real life scenario. Okie dokie, let's go on to our next one. This is our next word problem. So Susie, signing agent, accepts a loan signing on 6/22 for a signing on 6/26, the evening of 6/25. So she accepts it, say yesterday. Then on Sunday, she calls for the Monday morning signing. She opens the order online to get the signer info and to call the signer to confirm the signing time. The signer wants to sign early in the AM, but there are no docs. She then notices the special instructions. I'll read you the special instructions right here at the bottom of the screen. In order to receive docs, you must confirm the exact time of signing with the signer at least 24 hours before the scheduled signing time. Please call the signer as soon as you have received this order. So what went wrong here? Let's see, let's go for Yolanda.
So the first thing she did was not call the signer as soon as she got the order.
Yeah.
And she didn't read the special instructions. That's the second thing you do right away.
Yeah, no, exactly. Excellent job, Yolanda. That's exactly right. When you get an order, open that order within, I'd say, what, 2 hours? 2 hours of getting the appointment. So she didn't do that. She probably just assumed, hey, this is for a few days. I'll just call later on. Maybe she forgot about it. But when you get the assignment, you want to open that order up, right? Wherever it is. So whether it is an email that you receive, most likely you'll open that up. But if it's on a platform, right? The DocCloud, SnapDocs, Notary Dash, any of the mini platforms, open it up, because there might be special instructions that the coast to coast scheduler did not give to you, right? Because maybe this coast to coast scheduler assumed you would open the order. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So she didn't review the order within 2 hours. She didn't call the signers to confirm right away. She waited last minute, and she missed the special instructions. So when you get an order, open that order, right? When you accept it, look at the special instructions, call the signers right away, because this actually does happen all the time. I mentioned Bank of the West Equity. Bank of the West Equity has a rule that you need to confirm the signing, and you have to hit confirm on the website, which there's a little button that says the signing's been confirmed. And it isn't until they get that notification that they start generating docs, and they need at least 24 hours. So especially the timing here, remember, on the weekend, you cannot assume that anybody is working on the weekend. Coast to coast works on the weekend, but our lenders don't work on the weekend, right? Our escrow agents most likely don't work on the weekend. Some do, some you can get a hold of, but you can't assume that. So yeah, so what would have happened in this? Well, she would have had to call the signer again and say, it looks like we can't sign in the morning tomorrow. We're gonna have to wait, right? So I can ask for a rush on docs in the morning, but that doesn't mean we're gonna get them. So this is a tough one. This one happens all the time. So it's really simple. When you get a signing, get excited about that signing, open it up, call the signer, get confirmed. Now there is a maybe contracting company error in this as well. Why didn't our team catch this on Thursday or Friday? So that's doesn't have anything to do with you, but I know for Coast to Coast, we have a team of status people who will go through our orders and make sure that notaries are doing their job, right? That's the whole point, is that they're making sure that notaries are doing their job. But that doesn't mean that there aren't errors, right? Or they missed a file, or maybe you're a favorite notary and they just assume you're going to do the job correctly because they love you, right? They shouldn't assume that, because all of us, even seasoned notaries, make mistakes, but maybe that's what they did. So this one is just, you want to make sure to get it, like I said, get excited about the signings you're given, call them within 2 hours of receiving them, and read those special instructions. Okay, so that's all for our game. Thank you, everybody. You did so good. You even mentioned things that I didn't think of. And a lot of those things were notary items, which is good. You know your notary stuff. And if you didn't, and this was all new to you, keep coming, keep watching our videos, ask us questions. If you are not a notary yet, but you're wanting to be a notary, I hope this didn't scare you. It really is a fun and relatively easy job once you get going. And that's really why we do this, is to kind of give you that information that you would normally make or learn by making mistakes. We want to kind of get ahead of that. So here are a few tips for an error-free signing, or at least doing your part to make it an error-free signing. So when the signing is accepted, review order thoroughly. Follow instructions carefully. I can't say this enough for every notary, new and old, right? You want to review everything, make sure that you really understand it. And then before you print or when you get docs, review the docs. Once docs are printed, compare them with what was given to you online. If something looks a little funny, if something looks cut off, or something it's messy, doesn't look like the PDF, you have a problem and you need to get some assistance. So call the person that hired you. If forms are unfamiliar to you, you might want to flag them and put notes to remind you of where the signer needs to sign and what to have completed. So that's a little tip. Now, remember, before you ship the docs back, remove those flags. Escrow doesn't want to do that for you. They'll get fired up over it because it just is more time out of their day, right? Do your triple check of the docs once they're signed. I think a triple check is adequate. When you're new, you might check it 5 or 6 times before you ship it, but a triple check is I think, for me, that's what I do when I do loan signings. Okay, so this is a big one. Call, email, scream from the roof tops to anybody that you know that hired you with all issues, concerns, questions before, during, or after the signing. So keep good communication, right? Save the numbers of the people who reached out to you. Utilize their portals, right? Email them when you have their email. Get a hold of someone if there are issues. Do not let those issues go and just ship back docs with errors, or like our buddy who printed the docs with symbols. He just, didn't reach out to anybody and just said docs had issues. Not cool, right? You want to over communicate, right? That's my suggestion, over communicate. And then the big one, if errors are made, I really should have put when errors are made, take accountability. If you don't understand what the error is, ask questions to understand what the mistake is and fix it as soon as possible. So don't be like me when I, first started out, where I'd get defensive, like, no, I did not make this error. I should have asked the right questions, right? I should have said, oh, what do you need? What did I do? Oh, okay. I don't understand. I thought this was for escrow, or I thought, if you don't understand, because you don't want to make that mistake again, right? So thoroughly understand what happened. But most importantly, if it's your error, take accountability. We don't care about the error so much as your attitude, right? If you're fighting us on it or saying, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it, we can't use you, because time is of the essence for notary errors. Funding and recording has deadlines, right? So don't beat yourself up about it. You're gonna make errors. It's all about how you fix those errors. And sometimes you can become a favorite, even if you made an error, by the way that you fix them. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching.